Hi, I'm Nicola.
And I'm Jay Percy.
And welcome to the Afro Animist Podcast.
We are two animists and spiritual practitioners exploring the secular through the spiritual, discussing life experiences through a sacred lens.
Each week we share our experiences and dive deep into everything in life, from philosophy, metaphysics, obeah, occultism, shamanism, culture, healing, nature, animism,
the arts, pop culture, conspiracies, psychedelics and witchcraft. Nothing is off the table in these discussions, which aim to get to the heart of what it means to be spiritual and Afro-diasporic in an increasingly sterile and authoritarian world.
We keep it real whilst exploring the biggest mysteries of our multiverse. Join us holding this space to laugh, cry, debate, build community and tear down oppressive structures.
Welcome, beautiful being of the multiverse, to the Afro Animist Podcast. You are here with me today, Jay Percy.
And me, Nicola Roth. And today we have one of my favourite people in the entire world chatting to us about all the cool shit. So, should I read the bio? Do you want to read the bio, Jay?
I will read the bio. And hi, Ali. We are so excited to have Ali from Nurturing Folk here today. And Ali is a holistic therapist specializing in Reiki, sound healing, breathwork, and touch therapies to help people connect with their own inner calm and peace. Love those things. By using these modalities in one-to-ones and classes, she creates a safe space for clients to explore and heal from within, uncovering their own potential for calm and balance in their lives. She believes that we all have the capacity to tap into our own power and purpose, and that with the right support, we can create amazing changes in our lives and well-being journey. Her passion is to help you understand that power and to assist you in discovering your inner peace and deepen your understanding of how to feel soothed, rested, and regulated. This can all support you in navigating life with a strong connection to your mind, body, and own unique inner guidance system. And now I had the absolute pleasure and I must say luxury of going to one of Ali's day retreats last weekend, and gosh, did it embody all of those things that she's pointed out in her bio. I'm
going to the next one.
Oh, it was so
honestly
nice.
It was so refreshing.
Sorry. That's all right. Yeah, I was just listening to the bio and I was like, did I write that? It's been so nice to start doing the day retreats as this idea that we often think of retreats as these really inaccessible, quite expensive things. And actually, when we think about what the word retreat means and is, it's not necessarily or not only limited to a lovely, hot, sunny yoga retreat where people cook for you. You know, I mean, that is amazing and let's have that. But actually, let's also find like just retreating into ourselves where we can suspend our thoughts and just kind of be led into a space really comfortably and really safely. I think that's the thing that has felt really, really important with everything that I do is that people feel completely safe to be totally human in like all of their humanness, in all of their multifacetedness, that it's safe to have whatever experience they have and it's not gonna create any feelings of like vulnerability hangover or shame if you have a little cry, or if you're actually just sitting there and being like, oh God, what's this bit? And I'm not quite sure, like that's okay.
I mean, I've loved it, babe. I loved it so much. I'm going to go straight in with this. I do want to ask you some questions about your journey here and everything. But like for me, going and experiencing these things is really important. You know, like we can talk about them a lot, like all the different healing modalities, but to actually get down and experience them, I think is super important. And then there comes this other level after that where you start to go, okay, so hang on, the teacher really fucking matters. The safety matters. Like what I'm walking into really matters, that space can be held. And especially if you don't know exactly what it is that you're going in for. Like Jay and I didn't 1,000% know what we were going in for. I knew there was going to be some lovely gongs and sound healing, but I didn't fully understand what the breathwork was, because this technique that you do, I've never done before. And it was such a transformative experience, if I'm honest. And I was worried afterwards that I was going to have that vulnerability hangover. And I didn't actually have that. I just felt better and better and better. And I feel like we'll talk about what it is. We'll talk about what this breathwork thing is, because it was so simple, but so big. And yeah, I'm just really excited to share that with people. I feel like we've kind of not stumbled. I've managed to make it to one of your classes and really fucking understand like what this magic is. Okay, before I just like fangirl, because this will be a fangirl episode, by the way, guys. Like Jay knows.
Oh no. Cue inner flight.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna have to learn to take this, babe. But I want to ask you. I know. We're all dealing with it, but you got to get used to it. On this podcast, we're going to tell you how fucking fabulous you are, and we're going to let everyone else know so that they can come and experience your fabulosity. So this is kind of crazy actually, because Ali is such a close friend of mine that I know everything. And I just want to kind of help share with everybody else like the amazing journey that you've been on. So I'd like to kind of start by asking you, how do you identify spiritually? Like, what is your practice? Kind of what's brought you to this place of doing this healing work?
I suppose identity-wise, I've gone through so many different ways of looking at like, what is this? What do I do? What am I embodying? Actually, it is just the energy of love. It's the universal energy of love. Everything that I do it comes from a place of really fucking caring about human beings and wanting to support them and let them borrow the love that I have for them whilst they cultivate their own. Does that make sense?
100%.
And
yeah.
How do I identify spiritually? Like same, I think. Like I feel like we are just connected when we open ourselves. And this is why I don't believe that anything that I do isn't something that other people can't access with practice. Is that the energy that runs through the trees, the plants, all living beings, all of our beautiful world is what also runs through us. And through becoming super urban, right, and super busy and super stressed, we just lose that everyday magic and that little bit of awe and wonder and ceremony. And I tell you what, some of the really stressful times in my life that I've gone through, I've really lost that awe and wonder. And like getting up, I'm not there being like, I am so grateful for 10 things every morning. I'm there going, fuck me, it feels like I'm trying to walk through honey like every day. But you keep those practices and you keep doing them when it is hard, and you, I suppose, have faith, don't you, that is there anyway. And also because I suppose I believe that this higher power is not a higher power, it's a power for everyone. It's a pool we can all go to, we can all draw from. It also means I believe in myself, and I believe in everyone around me. Like there isn't a hierarchy there of spirit or flow or energy. So yeah, that's how I identify, I guess.
That's really beautiful. You
Isn't
haven't
it?
said the word animist, but it sounds very animist.
Babe, I was literally just going to say, so you're an animist then.
Because there is this emphasis on, you know, knowing that there is, and I love how you beautifully put it, it's not like a higher power, it's a power that everyone can access. It's like it's a universal power and it flows through everything. And there's, I mean, once you find a way to tap into this, honestly, there is nothing. There's nothing more wholesome. There's nothing that makes you feel more human than human and limitless all at once by tapping into this, which I think is brilliant. What have you enjoyed the most about getting into this mindset and into this spiritual practice of yours?
Um, Something that you said, which is that idea that we can feel really like holy, really spiritual, really limitless. And you can also feel completely unimportant, totally human, and in no way unique. Not in a bad way, but that is like the balance there, right? Of being able to access your beautiful personal power, your awe and wonder at the world, whilst kind of keeping your ego to a healthy level, you know, of not suddenly being like, I am a golden god, guys, and this is why you should come to me. And no shade, it's like that's what you lead with. But for me, those are not the people that they're not the people who even need my support. You know, it's be more human. I think what
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed is the loss of shame around being human, around making mistakes. I think the more I open to like universal energy, the more I realize I know absolutely nothing and have very little to say. Um, which is funny when Nikki and I were kind of saying, like, well, you know, how do you explain what you do? I was like, I just need people to come so I can feel their energy and they can experience what it is that I do. Because you'll just feel better. It's the simplest way to put it
I'm
all.
really interested. I'm really interested in you saying this loss of shame. Can you tell us a
Mm.
bit more about that?
Well, I think like when I don't know if it's like by dint of growing up in the like 90s and early 2000s where we had all this female empowerment, but maybe also we're growing up with a lot of really, really confusing messages at the same time of
Oh God,
be a
yeah.
good girl, be really pretty, be really meek and mild and silent, be strong but not too strong, have sex but not that way, like embody your sexuality but only for other people, like harness your power, but actually, like, could you not? Because actually, it's really problematic once you harness your power. That's actually now you're just being rude, and like, so you don't know whether you're coming or going, you know, and you experience a lot of shame around maybe as you're trying to feel out your edges, maybe as you're trying to find who you are and how you want to be and how you want to navigate the world. It's not quite how you're told or how it's being presented, and particularly how my parents would have presented. You go to school, you get your exams, you go to college, you go to university, you get on your pipeline and you keep going until you draw your pension. And you don't look left and you don't look right and you don't question happy. And living well means buying a house. Doesn't matter if you're really depressed. Like, definitely don't have any therapy because that would mean that there's a problem with you. And so I think all of those things create shame, and it gets really internalized, and you become ashamed of actually like a lot of yourself, a lot of your edges, like the bits that make you really interesting to talk to or make you just special in your own way, because everyone is, but a lot of people don't ever lead with their really cool shit, you know? And I
Very
think
true, yeah.
coming into spirituality and into a path of like self love and self acceptance really allowed me to stop judging myself so harshly, stop putting loads and loads of pressure on myself because I came from a fashion industry where there was loads of pressure. Um, on the external. And, it's always a work in process. But I do believe that when we function from a place of shame or a place of like lacking, it just really piles on, doesn't it? And I don't like the words like low vibration, but you just don't then make good choices for yourself. You're not nurturing yourself. And I think once you start loving on yourself, it's so easy to love everyone else as well and be less judgmental. It's like that ripple effect if you just become a more pleasant person to be around.
Yeah, I know some very judgmental people, and there's perhaps some people that, for whatever reason, I'm not allowed. I'm not able to get rid of out of my life. But I can observe them, and I can notice my judgment on their judgment. But you notice that their judgment comes from the fact that they're so critical of themselves to the point that when you first meet them, or when you watch them first meet someone new, the first thing they're jumping in with is almost like a self-defense, like talking shit about themselves before anyone else can jump in and judge them. It's like, I'm already aware of all of the ways that I should be ashamed of myself, so I'm just going to lead with that.
Yeah.
And it's so it's fascinating. Do you know, at first it was very angering for me to observe because I was putting so much judgment on it. But then I realized that I'm judging judgment. You go in this forever loop, and it's something you can pull back and observe and realize, hey, maybe I'm doing that in places in my life. Maybe this is just a mirror, so I don't do that myself.
I do. I also think sometimes you're shown that to show you where you've managed to step out of. I think sometimes there's those moments where you're like, oh, it's really humbling to remember that you can always be the toxic person in a room, no matter how much work you do on yourself. You could always be someone's toxic experience. And I suppose when I see people leading from that, I'm like, wow, like you're leading from a place of fear or whatever that is, and you wonder what the wounding is. And the reason we recognize it is because we definitely were leading from there too at some point in our lives, and probably will again, is the thing that I try and keep in mind. It's like you were saying, it's the forever circle of like you peel the onion and you're like, there you are again, my old friend.
You've cropped up. You weren't gone, you were just on an extended holiday. All you can hope is that the holidays get longer and longer.
Yeah.
Humaning is so hard. It's so hard. There's such a balance to fucking strike all the time. But like, I love, I'm going to go back a little bit, but I love what you're saying about the way that you actually create that safe space where you don't feel like you're above anybody. And I just feel like that's really, really, really important with this kind of work. This kind of work that we can't regulate. Do you know what I mean? It's because it's what comes from you. I feel like there's a space that you create, which is why I really wanted you on here, and I wanted you to kind of talk to all of our people, because there's a space that you create that is so safe. And actually, I do feel like I can come into your class and fart, cry, laugh, whatever I need to do, and it's not going to be judged. And when you're doing this healing stuff, it's crazy because a lot of the time you have to, that space of non-judgment is not created for you, and that has to be there in order to be able to get to those vulnerable places where you can do the real work, and actually there'd be a point of you doing all this crazy shit. Do you know what I mean? You've mentioned that you worked in the fashion industry. Now, I'd love you to tell us a bit about this, because obviously, like, your old life looked very different from the outside. I'm not saying internally I knew that you were on this vibe, but like from the outside it was very different from what it is that you do now. So would you just tell our listeners a little bit about your journey, like where you started, like what you actually came into the adult world doing, and maybe what it was that brought you to this place of feeling like this is the work that you should be doing?
Yeah. So I moved to like London and went to fashion school to study, and I discovered that actually it broke my heart losing the want to create art and textiles, because it was a job and because there was a brief and because I had to fill it and that I would much rather always have my creativity as a hobby now. It's an outlet for me very much, and it was probably never meant to be monetized for me. But then you come out and you're like, well, if I don't want to be a designer, what do I do? So I did a bit of modeling, and that made me feel truly awful inside. It just didn't suit me. I don't. My therapist said to me, maybe it was because it felt so unsafe to be fully yourself. So like being in front of a camera is so confronting at that kind of point. So I ended up, as we all do, like getting a job in retail, and I moved very quickly into management and managing teams of people within lots of different like luxury fashion stores. And the thing when I look back that I really loved about my job, because I did really like it and I was really good at it, was inspiring teams of people to kind of pull together to offer a really great service, and also making people who are shopping with us like feel really good about themselves. Um, the bit that obviously eventually when you're on this kind of path it stops working for you is you're making people feel really good about themselves through purchases. And like we all do that, but do I want to be part of perpetuating that? Probably not. um I think I hit complete burnout at 30, as you know, Nikki, and I was just, my internal landscape and my external landscape, they didn't match up at all. It was almost like having two separate lives, and that's the point where I think I like just went through a bit of a split. So I just sold all of my designer clothes that you get given as a manager from going to nice parties and all that stuff. And I went and lived in a van in the bush in Australia.
I love that. She sold all of her worldly possessions and lived in the bush.
She basically went full method on the hippie shit. Full
method. That's brilliant.
I just needed to let go of everything, all of it, like let go of myself. I was partying really hard as like a coping mechanism, and I was tired and I was burnt out, and I needed to go full hippie, full all the way, to like find that pendulum swing of, okay, so where does my life sit? Where do I want it to sit? How do I want it to look? And then I moved back home, really excited about kind of following this path of like being a holistic masseuse. At the time, actually, was I'd had this unbelievable experience with Kundalini massage and worked with someone who did a lot of like kahuna and raising your Kundalini energy and just clearing. And I used to just go to these massages for 90 minutes and cry and cry and cry. And the block in my throat was huge. And I couldn't bring myself to say to her, I was attacked by my ex, and that's why I'm crying. I felt so much shame around it, but we were still doing all the healing. I didn't have to be able to say that out loud. And so when I came home, she kept saying to me, I just keep getting this message that you're supposed to train in this modality. I came home and I was really excited to train it, and actually I just got pregnant instead, and had my children.
You did.
And that was the baptism of fire, I suppose, into the most healing I've ever had to do very, very quickly on myself, because you have that moment where you're like, I'm gonna sort my shit out so that I don't pass it down. Like, and in doing my own inner work, in finding the things that helped me on coming back to this human thing, on this really human level of just, I wasn't looking to take on, like, say, a meditation practice that is going to take me an hour a day. I just really was excited to learn about this other way of being, and a more peaceful way of being, and a more connected way of being. And then it was like, oh, but you know what? This little bit of energy work, it really helps me heal my anxiety. Oh, doing breath work is really great. It's a really great workout for your lungs. But on the flip side, it moves all of your stuff very quickly without having to mentally engage with it. Exercise, like just it was a real journey at 30 to kind of be like, okay, everything has to change. How I live has to change. I don't want to go back into a fashion industry. I don't want to be uncomfortable in the life that I lead. So how are we going to do this? Yeah. And I suppose that's where I ended up finding that helping people in this way, it is self-serving, isn't it? Because one, it allows me to live financially, but two, it means I'm doing something that I truly believe in and really, really love. So that's where you're like, I receive a lot of fulfillment from my work.
And like literally, what's more important in life, I know, than like truly enjoying your everyday, like doing something, we spend so much time at work. It's the place we have to spend the most time and the most thought and the most energy. So, you know, to hear your journey, to hear, you know, you're going to top schools and going and working in like these extreme levels of the fashion industry, getting like, you know, Alison was getting scouted and shit like that, like, you know, to go and be this amazing luxury retail manager.
I think
and
this is why this is so interesting to hear this story, because it sounds like what, as women, especially in the 90s and noughties, you were told to want growing up. You know, all of the movies, all of the magazines, that's what you would have. It was the whole it's like the tail end of the supermodel era, right?
Exactly.
That's what we were supposed to want. That's what was supposed to give us like fulfillment. So I think I'm just so thankful to hear this story, because you know, you don't necessarily have to find the joy in the thing you're supposed to want, or you don't have to you don't have to remain in that place. Even if you did find joy in the beginning, or you enjoyed aspects of it, there are actually other ways to feel fulfilled.
Yeah, 100%. I think so.
And look, sorry, I'm going to butt in. Oh, sorry.
You do it.
I just want to say I wanted to butt in because both of you have had a journey in that way. Do you know what I mean? Like, both of you amazing women sitting in front of me right now have gone, okay, I'm earning good money, I'm building a career in this place, and I'm doing very well at it. And then gone, but actually it does not fulfill me. This does not fill me up with joy. Like, what the fuck am I going to spend the rest of my life doing this and not feeling great? Like, and it's just, you know, I have so much respect for that. It's such a hard thing to step out of one thing and into the other, and it be the complete unknown. And then also just be fucking phenomenal at it. Anyway, your turn.
You know what? It's really about expanding on that as well. So we're taught that our job needs to pay our bills, right? It's a conversation I'm having with kids kind of already as they're applying to secondary schools, because they're on that treadmill of like, all the choices that you make really matter. And I'm like, we're asking you to make choices that are going to allow you to live a happy and healthy life. Like, that's what we're asking. Like, you know, let's just try and do that. And if we do that, you're always going to be okay. And if you're not okay, you're going to have the tools to have the answers, or find the answers, or find the people that have the answers for you. I don't know. Like, but I recently learned about the idea that you could be being paid way more than you need to be comfortable, right? But if you don't feel safe, like if you don't experience actual nervous system safety while you're in your job, you're probably not going to be satisfied in your job. If you don't feel appreciated or fulfilled, and there's so many, so like finance is only this one part, and we weren't taught that when we were young. We were just taught, just get the highest wage that you can get, negotiate the highest wage that you can get, make the most. Like, as women, there's a ceiling, go and break the glass ceiling. And it's like, okay, but at what cost? And where are the other glass ceilings? Like, where is the glass ceiling of like life satisfaction? Because that's definitely one. As women, we're not really told. We're told to be of service, like whether it's to our partners,
Totally.
our families.
I can absolutely speak to that, because I'm no longer a woman in tech. But what have we heard this last decade? Oh, we need more women in tech. You know, just get women in tech, and then women get into tech. And there are so many women I speak to who are either still in the industry or have left because we just don't get that nervous system safety.
Mm-hmm.
So why are we being pushed into this very sort of like, I would call it slyly aggressive. It's a slyly aggressive industry because it's not like finance where they're like very cutthroat. It's they'll be cutthroat, but then they'll throw in like Beer Friday and a ping pong table or a PlayStation, so it looks like it's more fun than it actually is. But actually, the amount you're having to do and the amount you're having to give yourself, there was just no nervous system safety for me. So I think that's such a brilliant like identification. You need that nervous system safety in order to feel satisfied. Which is why I left. I didn't feel satisfied. Tech is one of the highest paying industries at the moment, and I, like an idiot to some, during the start of a recession, have gone, bye, fuck you all. But it's possibly the best thing I could have ever done for myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really important to also be aware, like when we're going into particularly male-dominated industries, that the work that you have to do as a woman, you know, is just tenfold, because there's also like the internalized misogyny, patriarchy, belief systems that people are working from. And that is a whole vibe. Like, even if people are like throwing in like their little bits of like, oh, we're doing Well Women Wednesdays or whatever it is, it doesn't feel great knowing that you're in a space where more education needs to be done before people go, come on, women, come join us because we need you, because otherwise we look bad, right? Yeah, I think it's such a complicated space to be navigating actually at the moment, because there are lots of changes and lots of progression, but it's not there yet fully, is it? You know, even in like fashion is quite a female dominated industry, but ultimately it's often men who own business, and business is done in a very masculine way. And it was definitely really, really jarring to my nervous system. Sometimes I had to go and like have like a big power cry. I would come out of a meeting where everyone just is so self-assured, and I would have to just go in the toilets and have a little cry and come back out and like crack on with my day.
Power cry. That should be the phrase of the year in this year's dictionary. Have you, dear listener, had a power cry at work? Let us know.
We'll start doing
I've power cried every single day at every single job that I've had. Every day. Ali knows, because one of my first jobs was actually working for Ali. So
well, we met. I was thinking,
she knows. Yeah. Do you want to tell them what a great employee I am? Why was I sent to your shop?
Nikki was sent to because she doesn't smile enough. Which I'm
crazy, right?
To do now, would you?
Say again?
Yeah, so I don't know if you'd be allowed to do that nowadays. Like when you're serving people.
I mean, if I'm honest, Al,
okay, yeah. So you two are going to need to back up. You're going to need to rewind. You'll need to tell every single one of us the story.
I'm going to tell the story right from my point of view. Okay, so when I was like 20 years old, I started working for this shop, this female sports shop, right? It was a big deal back then. They had them all over London, internationally. Alison was the manager of one of them in central London. I was what you called I was like a temporary worker, so I went to wherever you needed me. I ended up getting sent to Ali's shop because she was a pro basically at getting people to work better. But the whole thing is when you walked into the shop, you had to like jump up and be like, hey, welcome guys. Can I help you? Do you want some yoga pants? Do you want some trainers? And I just didn't do that, and I couldn't do that. And I'm a very smiley person, as I'm sure you guys are aware of. I'm very smiley, but I struggled to sell basically. So they sent me to Ali's shop so that I could learn how to smile and be a better person. But if I'm honest now, I thought about this the other day, because every time I go into a shop, I was in freaking JD Sports the other day, standing there with a pair of trainers, waiting for somebody to come and be like, hey, can I help you? And I'm just like, gosh, these kids nowadays, They do not know customer service at all. Like,
but I think actually, like,
but anyway,
Americanisms have dropped, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
I don't know. I find it weird.
I'm fucking glad for that, because when I was working in retail, the amount of Americanisms they forced upon us, it's just like, no one likes this. I don't like this. Everyone's awkward. What are we accomplishing here?
We get intimidated as English people if you say hello.
I swear there's a comedy sketch in that. Like, how do you say hello to polite British people who immediately are going to be like, hang on, what? Oh, it is, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, that it was also like quite a long but thin shot, and if you were going to follow someone around, it did just feel a bit socially awkward. So actually, what Nikki was saying was social norms, but they didn't really fit with what you had to do.
Did you learn how to smile more? Did you become, in fact, a better and friendlier person?
No fucking way. No fucking way. Does anyone become a friendlier person working in a shop in Central? Does anyone? Like, having to deal with all those people? Yeah. Nah, bruv. Like, no, that taught me.
I became a
I shouldn't work in a shop.
Tuesday.
Sorry, Al, we've just spoken all over you.
That's fine. That's how you resign. Just so you know, I'm pretty sure that you actually resigned by saying, I just don't think I should work in retail.
Yeah, I did, because they came in and they were like, you haven't cleaned this shop. And I was like, bitch, there's so much dirt in here that when I got here, I was like, that ain't my job to clean this shit. If you want me to, I'm quitting. Bye. I shouldn't do this job. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for putting you guys through it. I shouldn't have done it.
That was the start and end of Nikki's retail career.
She actually came to help me in one of the other shops I was setting up as well. She's great.
Oh. I'm good at stuff. I am.
Sometimes. You are good at stuff, babe. Don't you think that actually, had you been managed, because the reason that I was good at getting people to do whatever we were supposed to be doing was actually just by treating people nicely and like human beings, and not coming back to like, we've got this target. I mean, we do have those targets, and that's what helps us pay our rent because we get paid. But, you know, let's also, like, I remember saying to you, like, something that you need to know about yourself is like, when you relax your face, you do look cross with people.
She was educating me about the resting bitch face, but she didn't know I was from Peckham. I know. No, it's true. No, you are right.
You build up in South London.
You're totally right.
Walk around smiling down the street in Peckham.
You get
not safe, babes.
Well, it's. I mean.
Oh, but you were a manager.
As girls, though, as at that age, as girls, young women, can you walk around smiling at everybody? Probably not.
No.
You know, that's the reality, isn't it? Like, my next door neighbour's daughters are like in their teens now, and it really made me reflect on like, Nix, your resting bitch face, and me like moving to London all like fresh 18, and really having to learn very, very quickly that being friendly does not serve you in any way in navigating a big town.
It's sad.
You literally have to change your nervous system response to where you're living, and as a result, I guess the vagus nerve ending somewhere at your head, your face, like that's where it ends, right? That's the visual representation of this built up stress, this built up nervousness that you have to walk around within the city, especially as a young girl. I was being catcalled from as young as like 11 or 12 years old. So you don't, I mean, I walk around smiling like an idiot now because if you mess with me, you will catch these hands and I will win. But as as a 17-year-old girl, it's not that way, is it?
No,
No,
exactly.
I'll tell you what's been really interesting. It moves this on slightly, but is I to do a brief recap. So I had breast cancer last year, and I ended up having a mastectomy, and a rebuild. But my boobs are now proportionate to my body size, whereas I had really, really, really big boobs for my frame growing up, and to the point where we just thought I had body dysmorphia because I hated my body so much. And actually, what it was, having had a mastectomy and coming back into like a normal size, was I just felt a bit like a blow up porn doll, and I was treated that way as well. And people stare at your boobs, and so I would always dress to try and hide them. And I suppose it really got me to examine how much internal shame I had experienced of coming into a womanly body at about the age of 30. You know, like with men, whether they're in your family or in your kind of adult social circles, and also like the mums, you know, it's that like, oh, look at you getting boobs, and it's just a horrible and painful and shy time. And why are you talking to me about my boobs? I'm not talking to you about yours. Like, yeah, it really made me realize, I think, that growing up in that period where catcalling was totally normal and we should take it as a compliment, what a weird number having big boobs did on the way that I navigated society. I just felt like I had to hide all the time. I think being a woman is particularly complicated when you are younger, you know.
100%. Yeah, and especially if you have something desirable like that, like big boobs or a big bum or the best hair or the best, you know, it's really challenging. We were speaking a little bit about this in our last episode, where, you know, the responsibility of all of this stuff has been, and I feel like it's maybe changing now. I mean, I know so many mums like you who have a completely different idea about this thing, but so much of the responsibility when we were growing up, 90s noughties children, like, it was us as girls to understand that it was our responsibility to present ourselves in a certain way so that we weren't looked at in a way to make us feel uncomfortable or something didn't happen to us. And yeah, it's a crazy thing. And I think it's actually been, as your friend, a really interesting journey to see that in the past year with your recovery from breast cancer and the change of your body and just kind of what that's brought up for you. Would you be happy to talk about like where you're at with that now? So obviously last year you had your operation.
Yeah. So we're actually coming up to my diagnosis anniversary.
Oh wow,
in
yeah.
March last year, I found a lump.
Okay.
And I just knew. I just felt it and went, ooh. And I've had blocked milk ducts before. I've had scans in the breast cancer unit because that lump is not going away. And this one, just the energy, I was like, oh, that's not good. And I said to my partner, I need to go and get that checked. So I got the initial diagnosis in April, like around April 20th or so. And because I've been fully prepared, kind of that it wasn't going to be good news, whilst I was really sad, I also was like, oh, okay. Like, it's going to be a lump. And everyone was like, don't worry, you've caught it quite early. It doesn't feel too big. We are just going to whip that out and probably give you some radiation and off you go. And what then happened was like this 3-month decline through a long and quite physically painful diagnosis, where every time they biopsied me, they would find a little bit more cancer or a little bit more of something, or a completely different, not different type of cancer, but there'd be another tumor, or there'd be cells trying to multiply and spread really aggressively. And each time that meant you'd have to have a different biopsy or a different type of scan, and by the time you get to the point where someone calls you to say, okay, we've got all of your results back, and actually it's mastectomy, you have been naked in front of so very many people. You've had your boobs like handled in and out of machines and biopsied by so many people that actually what it felt like to me was that my relationship with my breasts had already very much changed, and I was in one way really gutted, obviously, to be facing a mastectomy or just be facing cancer. Ultimately, I think is really it, isn't it? But in another way, like, okay, I know what we're doing now, and in some ways, at least, I won't have that constant worry of like, well, what if that lump? What if you didn't get all the lump? What if you didn't get the skin around the lump? What if? What if? What if? What if? Like, what is going to give me the best outcome? And this is a conversation I was having from really early on. Was I want to have the best outcome for my mental health that I can, and that needs to be how I feel safe in my body going forwards, but also how will I feel in my sensuality and my sexuality. And it was really interesting how uncomfortable that particular conversation made people, because it was like, what do you mean you don't want to just be grateful to be alive? And you're like, no, like, I choose to live well. I want to know how this is going to impact me and what I can do to really allow me to continue to live well, actually. And so I went through the mastectomy, and I had something called pat flap reconstruction, which is from your own body. So the back of my legs, they cut from like the front of your inner thigh all around underneath your bottom, and they take out some skin and some flesh, and they rebuild your boob like plasticine. And obviously they have to plumb you into like all of your, what is the word I'm looking for? I've also got menopause brain. Arteries.
Arteries, yes. That's important.
Yeah.
Very important.
You need those.
They look for the best arteries, and they plumb you in. And the recovery was like pretty tricky, actually. Like, no one warns you that having that kind of reconstruction will make it feel like someone's pulled your tights up too tight, but actually it's your skin. And obviously you experience a lot of nerve damage, and I couldn't sit down like for a little while. I couldn't sit down to have a poo, which actually makes going to the toilet really hard. You're pumped full of drugs from surgery. You come home to 3 children. Like, it, I was in hospital for 3 days, and then I was home. And then actually Nikki moved in with me because I sent Finn on his stag do. So I sent the person I just got married to on his stag because I was like, go and have a break, because cancer affects everyone. And I suppose a year on, to like bring that round, I am now trying to work with my body to trust it, to be grateful for it, to be accepting of my newness. You know, I still don't have a nipple on my left hand side. Eventually that will come. That will be something that will get made, but we have to wait for the scars to heal and there to be really good blood flow. And within all of that, you have this weird like yin yang feeling of like, wow, body, you are so amazing. Like, thank you so much for making a tumor and alerting me that there was something wrong. Like, thank you for pushing out some like cells that had a brain fart. And I know that is not the way that everyone would choose to look at this, but for me, feeling like my body hadn't failed me, feeling like my body was working its hardest to keep me alive, really allowed me to have quite a big reframe around breast cancer. And I suppose you experience quite a high level of like gratitude for life, because it just challenges your invincibility. I should have had chemo on paper. Like, if you were looking at the stats, that was where we thought it was going. It's what would have been recommended by my oncologist. But I fitted into this very small window of people who are allowed to have an onc test, which means that they check your genetics and loads of other stats to see how likely reoccurrence is. And so their course of treatment actually was that chemo would have made less than 1% difference on my reoccurrence rates. But being put into menopause, chemical menopause, would really, really help my reoccurrence rates. So I'm now postmenopausal as well. So I lost my boobs, lost my cycle, lost my fertility. Um, and you're faced with this choice of like, how do I want to go forward in life? How do I want to, what am I going to lead with? And there are definitely days, don't get me wrong, where I am just like, today is a bad cancer day. Today, I'm just really gutted that cancer happened. Like, that is the simplest way of putting it. It's not necessarily that my body has changed. It's not that I am menopausal, so that kind of creates its own problems. It's just those days where you're just like, that was really big, that was really fucking scary, and you have to just give yourself the grace to have those days. But the rest of the time, actually, my reframe has been very positive. Like it has given me so many gifts. And I know that that really isn't how everyone feels about these things. I know it can be a really difficult way or a confronting way to hear someone thinking. But I um I couldn't say that I would swap this last year because I wouldn't have the lessons and the knowledge and the absolute gift that it just sliced through some shit. Like some of the stuff that I needed to be way further away, some of my triggers need to be way further away, are so far now in my peripheral vision that I couldn't say I'd swap any of that, you know.
It's wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Al, because I just, yeah, it's so important. I feel like to be able to share really honestly about as that kind of journey, a journey with cancer. Like, and I hear what you're saying about maybe some of the places that you've got to with the way that you feel and look at it could be confronting for some people. But I also like, I have so much respect like for you for being able to look at it like that, because you know so much less of something can happen in people's lives and they don't have that, and we find it very difficult. um seeing you like seeing you last year, like being there with you as well when you were in the depths of that just after the operation, but also seeing like what's unfolded afterwards, I feel like has been, I don't know what the right word is to explain it, but like I've been honored in a big way to be able to witness it and to learn from you actually these really beautiful ways of like looking at life. Do you like with the practices that you're offering now, so the breath work and the Reiki and there's so many things, there's obviously the gonging, is there anything you feel like has in particular helps you like when you're in your hardest moments with those techniques,
Yeah.
or is
So
it any
I mean,
variations?
I like Reiki for me is always just when you're feeling powerless or weak or just a bit like on your knees, you know, with that day, with your life, with whatever. Reiki for me is the time to go and like really tune into like that universal energy of love, because you're going to receive your love, everyone else's love, the love of like Mother Nature. And I think just allowing that to run through you might not change everything up that exact moment, but you are actively doing something or allowing something to flow through you with openness that is supportive. Um, Gonging was an amazing one. So I definitely feel like my gongs are part of my actual family. Like they have a whole spiritual, energetic thing to each of them. And I took, oh, sorry, I've got a pop up window opening. Change. Sorry, guys. Yeah. There we go. What was I saying? Oh, my gongs.
Taking your family, gongs are your family.
My family. Taking time off them while I was healing, because obviously you have to allow everything in your chest to come to a resting place. So you can't gong because some of your mallets are quite heavy, and actually just even it was beautiful coming back. It was like when I reconnected with my gong after a couple of weeks, just in my own room and just to play really gently. It creates such a feeling of home for me. I think I had this belief when I started out on with playing gong and bowls that I've been to some incredible sound healing events, and I've been to places where I have been in the fetal position, absolutely like all of my stuff is coming up. Other times I've just felt dead relaxed. And I really set the intention that I wanted to work very gently with sound and in a way that was like doing less, you know, like being a bit minimal. I'm not trying to crack people open in one session. I'm trying to help people find a really comfortable space in themselves. And so that's the energy that my instruments have. It is like comfort, I think, and it's what I really receive from them when I play them as well. So that's really supportive. Breathwork is amazing. I mean, breathwork is amazing for loads of different reasons. It alkalizes your body, which, if you have cancer, is always going to be supportive. It oxygenates you, and having just fresh oxygenated blood pumping around a body that has had an 11-hour operation is really, really important. So I was like back on my quite hard breath work quite early on because it was the thing that I could do that helped me feel energized and invigorated after my operation. And the biggest practice I actually think has been, so I call it like compassionate self-inquiry. And it's just getting clear on what we want, why we want it, what it's going to do for us. Because actually what it does is it allows us to just move our bullshit out of the way. Like if you're in like a swimming pool full of floaties, you can just really gently move them to the one side. There's no ripping, tearing, pushing, shoving. You're just being like, oh, that's not for me. And it's just quite a loving practice, and it allowed me to really have a lot more space for gratitude and awe and wonder. And like, I suppose my final practice would just be being in green space. Like, they're all very simple and accessible things, but just being in a park with some trees, like, you know, sometimes I like walk through them and I'm just like, oh, wow. And you can actively like admire, and I mean really admire, the nature around you. Like when you're on your walk, you can really be like, oh, wow, look at that red, look at that green, look at that shadow, look at the way that tree is moving. And it's such a good practice for just connecting with your environment while you're there. And a bit of everyday magic, like it's good for you.
100%. I love that. Okay, one, I'm going to start calling you Animist Ali because I don't think you realise how much of an animist you are. And two, like, I love this. I love this place. This thing that you have, your compassionate self-inquiry. And I know you always haven't been amazing at it, but I feel like there's been elements of me recognizing that you do something like that throughout our relationship. And like, just that image is so beautiful because I feel like if I think about self-inquiry, I'm like, oh my God, it's a lot. It feels like it's going to be such a big, hard thing to do. Seriously, the image that you just gave me of like, you're in a pool, you're just gently moving the floaties out of the way. Oh my gosh, so beautiful. And actually, that is a wonderful image for what it is like to work with you. Like you may at some point feel like the pool's a little bit deep. I definitely have had that feeling, but it's been easy to move those floaties out of the way, and I know I'm not going to drown. And I kind of want us to share a bit about what our experience was, Jay, at Ali's event, because it was just such a deep and beautiful experience, actually. I don't know. Do you want to share a bit of what you?
I do. We started with some intention setting, and then moved into the breath work, which I don't know why I was so shocked. I was really, really shocked. Ali gives you this great breathing technique, and you keep up with it for probably longer duration of time than if you've tried it at home by yourself you would do. And it sort of like it snaps. You don't think things are going to come up. You think, oh, okay, this is great. This is oxygenating. Whoa, why is that thing coming up? And I felt the urge to sort of sway my hips, sway my knees, and then the tears started. Like, where is this coming from? I'm there sobbing, trying not to sob to disturb the room, and then I hear this one start. It's like, right, so if she's sobbing, then fuck it, I'm going to continue to sob. And it's not that Ali doesn't tell you in the beginning anything that comes up, you're allowed to let come up, but you do initially feel that sort of like, I can't possibly cry in a room of strangers, can I? You can. You absolutely can. You should cry anywhere. Cry anywhere.
It's
cry on
a great
the bus.
thing to do. Exactly.
And it felt like by the time we'd sort of then come slowly down towards the end of this duration of time, the crying had like subsided. It found its way off. It's like, right, you've cried it out now. You're feeling a bit safer, and I didn't feel like I needed to move my knees as much. Ali comes around with some like soft touch if you are open for that. And I think you put your hands just here, just on my shoulders. And it was like a gentle yet firm push. And that really just, it brought me back into myself. And then we moved on to this beautiful, beautiful sound bath. And I just felt like, when you're a kid, I don't know how many of you had this experience, but you'll have a cry and you'll have like an adult say to you, oh, what you're crying about isn't that important, or stop crying, some kind of like really dismissive comment. This felt like I was able, like a toddler, to have a cry, and then I actually had someone to go, it's okay to have big feelings, without saying those words. And that's what the sound bath felt like. And then when I got home, I fell asleep at 7:30 and I slept for 13 hours.
Wow.
It's great.
And she's been bouncing off the walls ever since, buzzing, living her best life.
I know. Literally. Energy to do shit again. No, I feel like a huge block has been cleared, and the intention I had set sort of was tied up around body image issues, and sort of, I guess I'd come to a realization of why I had been holding on to certain things, why I felt I needed to hold so tightly on the stories around those traumas. And that feels like it's come away so effortlessly.
And this was a 2-hour retreat, boy. 2 hours. That's all. 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon. Like, amazing. And I had, I don't know if you were crying first, Jay. If I was crying first, I'm pretty sure. I felt like I started the cascade of crying.
At the same time. No, because I was crying, and then it's like, oh god, and then I heard you like, like, oh okay.
I thought I was being quiet. I thought I was being silent back there with my sobs.
You were trying to be silent. I don't know if the rest of the room would have heard you, but we were quite close to each other, so I definitely heard it.
That's true. I mean, the girls whose heads were right by my head, they definitely heard me. But it's like, it was, I mean, I'm always gonna, I have a lot of stuff to move. It was like Domino's, wasn't it? I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry, because we did some healing work. It was amazing.
We did some healing work. It was fabulous.
We did some healing work. And there is this thing in like, we're saying crying, but obviously it wasn't just crying. It's more, it was crying as an activity to create a movement within our bodies. Like it needed
purging.
to happen.
It was purging. I've been to Kambo ceremonies and that's what I felt, right? That purging. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's it. And it's like, actually to in any way stop that from happening is a disservice to yourself. So again, beautiful that we're in a space where we're reminded that we are allowed to do that and there's no judgment. Beautiful actually also the space that you created, Ali, meant that everybody there was also non-judgmental of everyone else. Like I didn't feel judgment from a single person, which sometimes I have done in these kind of situations. I did that with Ali and Jay, and then I had a second session. I had a private session this week for an hour. Was it an hour? I don't even know, babes. Yeah. And it actually an amazingly beautiful gift. Like this is the kind of technique I feel like if you have like trauma that is still locked in, stored in your body, if you've done your talking therapies, like obviously it isn't only for this, but if you've done your talking therapies and those places are still locked in there, because a lot of the time, I know we were talking about this, Ali, like, you know, we've all had therapy, and for me personally, like I do love to sit and talk about stuff, but there's also another aspect of like I feel very little change or betterment when I come out of a talking therapy session. I normally have to go home and recover from it, whereas this brought up the things that were the things. Like there was no talking through all the shit to kind of get to the core just, oh, you know, the top layer of the core arrived and it was there, and it was moved through my body. I had no control over that in the sense of like once I started the breathing, once I committed to the breath and I committed to allowing myself to be vulnerable, that movement was going to happen. And there were definitely moments through the breathing I actually had like a very, 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 very deep experience that I feel like I will talk about, but maybe on another episode because we're running out of time. And it was so, I don't even know, I am going to have to do a whole episode probably just about my experience, Ali. But what moved out of my body was amazing. And there was moments when I was like, I'm never going to get through this. This is never going to end. You know, that place where you're like, oh my God, I know I've only booked for 2 hours, but this could last my lifetime.
What have I let myself in for?
What have I let myself in for? And then Ali's voice would come in at that moment and be like, come back to your breath. You know, or she'd come in the session, come around and just placed your hands on my feet at one point. And for me, that's one of the most grounding, beautiful, useful things that can be done. And just at the right moment, you did that and you brought me back, you know, and it was just such a beautiful reminder for me, this work is a reminder about being uncomfortable, like allowing yourself to move into those uncomfortable places so that you can move the things that are actually keeping you feeling uncomfortable and feeling bad and create a kind of freedom for your life. So I would 1,000% recommend you, and that isn't just because I know you, it's because actually having done this work with you, I know that you create a complete safe space where we can come in and we can actually do this, be vulnerable. The ego's left at the fucking door, and it's just absolutely wonderful. So guys, if you want to do any of these things that Ali offers, then get the fuck in touch. Maybe now would be a good time, my darling, for you to tell us like what so where people can find you and what you have coming up in the next month or so.
Okay, so in the next month I have got another retreat afternoon coming up at Hot Yoga Peckham, and that is on the 12th of February. And you know, we're getting a bit close to Valentine's Day around that time, and one of my real things is that you don't need to be in love to be of value to yourself, to society, to your friends, family, whatever. And so the theme will probably be quite loose and quite gently around being your own source of love, validation, compassion, adoration, you know. And I'm not saying we have to go all the way in there. If a millimeter is all the space that you can find in your body, then that is everything that you need to receive in that moment. There is no like, you must have a big shift and come out being like, I love me, because actually you might just not feel that way, and that's all right. And so we've got that, which is what you guys had a month on. And then I've also got our February sound bath at Gaia Pilates Studio. That's on Bellington Road. They're both in SE15. That is sold out, but we've got another one at the start of March and another at the end of March. So it's March 3rd and March 31st. Also starting just a very specific course of breath work. So it is for beginners. It's for people who have had shed loads of experience with breath. The conscious connected breath work is a type of breath work that actually a lot of people haven't necessarily experienced, and it's breath work for healing. I mean, all breath work actually is healing, but this one it's particularly, I suppose, quite like an elegant modality in that you pull up the thing you want to work on and it's like a dart and you don't have to attach loads of thoughts to it. So I've got breathwork classes started, and I'm just looking to start like an online community breathe. So for people who are not in the Southeast London area or really can't like journey there or whatever, or wants it more regularly, then okay, so I'm going to come, but that's a trip, you know. Then we're going to have an online breathe, and that will start at the beginning of April. So I think that is everything that we've got going on. Oh no, I've got
You're very busy.
I've got a Pilates and sound with a beautiful Pilates teacher. She really like lives that cold showers, breath work, eating well, looking after your body thing. Gemma from Shape Pilates, and we work together every couple of months to hold a space for people, and that is at Oru on the 12th of March. Everything is like my schedule essentially.
Amazing.
And tickets to buy those things are all in my link tree in my bio on my Instagram, which is just Nurturing Folk.
Which is what?
Nurturing Folk.
Perfect.
Lovely.
And I will drop all that. That will all be in the info box for you guys as well. So make sure that you do connect with Ali. Do you have anything you wanted to say, Jay, before I continue talking?
Thank you. You've opened my mind to what I thought breathwork was. I now have a better idea of what it truly is. Like there are things that I would do at home by myself, but your technique broke through in a way I haven't experienced before. So thank you. Honestly, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure.
Yes,
it's also, I think,
thank you, my darling.
What we when we're talking about breath work, right? Like there are so many different types of breath that we can do, but sometimes trying to do that thing by ourselves without guidance, without someone else's voice, or someone just prompting you and holding that space, I think can be quite hard. Like we don't always have to do the thing by ourselves. You know, it is okay to outsource. I think that's a really important thing to remember, particularly when we're working with bigger things. Or I think, sometimes the prompts can be as helpful as the actual technique that you're working with. So it's often like, I don't know if you guys were aware, but like what I talked to you about for the first kind of 15 minutes is a lot of like being with the resistance to breath work, being with the resistance to the emotions that are coming up. Like it's not about being in the perfect place to do breath or life or whatever. It's can you do it even when you're feeling resistant to it, you know? And there's a difference between resistance and self-protection, and kind of having the grace to know which is which.
Yeah, you definitely held the space through what was the resistance. Yeah, that really tipped it. It's not probably what I needed. It's exactly what I needed, and I will be. I think I'll be trying to come down on the 12th. I haven't double booked myself, but yeah,
I'm going to be there, babes.
Honestly, I would do it again.
Yeah,
you are.
Yeah, we've got a dog.
Okay, so I've not booked in with you. I'm just thinking of the people I book things in with. It's probably Nicola or my mum.
Yeah. So you're free. You're free to go.
Most likely, yeah.
Amazing.
I love it. Well, I'll see you next Sunday, babes.
If you don't mind me sharing this, when we were doing our breathe, in the middle of the breathe, as you went in and whatever was coming up for you was coming up, she actually was verbally going, I don't like how this feels and I don't want to do it. And I was just
yeah.
In that moment. But it's the moment actually where, and this is why having a facilitator who's trauma informed is really helpful. Like, it doesn't have to be me, but you want one that is trauma informed when you're working on the big stuff. Is when you see that person and they're going into their trauma and into their cry and into that space, and you just have to get hold of them and pull them out, because we're not drowning and we're not diving really deeply into the swimming pool. We are just moving that stuff out of the way, and what is ready to come up and let go of, you're going to breathe out of the way, you know. So we had a lot of like, just come back to your breath, you're going to feel so much better once we've done this. I know it feels horrible at the moment, but yeah, I do find people are like, oh, I'm going to come and have a lovely breathe, and then you're like, oh, like, you will have a lovely breathe and you're going to feel elated afterwards, but in that moment you might be like, wow, I really hate Ali, and what has she done to me? I'm not selling that as an afternoon retreat, am I?
Yes.
You know what, you absolutely need these things to clear through, and it isn't because you're trauma informed, it's not traumatizing, it's not like triggering your traumas, and I think you do need to be able to feel that particular feeling of, like, how to explain it, discomfort in some element of yourself or your life. You do need to be able to feel that in a controlled situation, because 100%. If you don't take the time to feel that feeling still lives in your body. It finds a way to replay itself because it's not getting the attention it wants. It's like a toddler. It's like, mommy, 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 mommy. It's not going to shut up. You have to pick the thing up and nurture it and go like, hey, it's okay. And then the soothing happens and you can put it down and move through the next thing or whatever it is you want to move through. And you need to face discomfort. And I think so many of us have experienced such trauma or traumatizing events that we feel that we need to avoid discomfort entirely. But I'm telling you, avoiding that discomfort isn't where post-traumatic growth lives. It isn't where it lives. And you owe it to yourself to want to find that place of post-traumatic growth, not just for yourself, but just, I don't know, this is bigger than, I feel like this is bigger than just us, right? This is a development of a species, and
well, there's that amazing
whether go on.
I was going to say, there's that amazing saying, like, we use it a lot in women's circles, but when one woman heals, she paves the way for other women to heal, or for the healing of all women.
Yeah.
It's that, like,
exactly that.
And there is also, in doing group work, sometimes the want is to do a one-to-one because it feels like you can really like go deeper. It like Nick, you would have found that. But I think group work, the beauty thing with group work is you get the borrowed benefits as well. So whatever you're healing, someone else is getting your healing energy. So whilst I'm holding a space, the energy of everyone that was in that room, everyone brought it. Everyone was just there and going for it and working on their stuff. And I had to have like a really big cry when I was telling a friend about it the day after, because I was just so blown away by how open and ready everyone was to kind of, I don't even want to say do their work, but like look at their self, look at whatever they wanted to work on, call in whatever they wanted to work on. And I was just really in awe of the space that we were all in. And right, that post-traumatic like stress, it can live in you forever if you're not careful, and it can really inform how you navigate your life, doesn't it? And the decisions you make. And you think that, so one of the stories I told myself was, I think that I'm a shy person and I'm very unconfident and I find it difficult. No, that wasn't what it was. So I breathed on it and I breathed on it and I breathed on it and I peeled the onion until I was down all the way to this little seed. And what it was having had a couple of really quite disastrous, like abusive relationships, it hadn't been safe to completely embody myself. It wasn't safe to fully be myself. And what you realize is, okay, so you're coping, but actually in not addressing it and where it lives in the body, I could talk about that in therapy for 10 more years, but all I'm doing is reliving the trauma. In actually looking it in the face and breathing it out, or in my case, like really roaring it out, because I'll do quite a loud vocal release sometimes when I'm by myself breathing. I will never make you do that in class. There is this space of progression, I guess, and also because you're putting that PTSD, that trauma, that whatever, just a little bit further away from you each time, there's space. And like, what are you filling that space with? And I think that is where the beauty in all healing work actually comes, isn't it? Is where we've created space. Like, where is the light going to shine into? And what gift is that giving you? You know, like, even if it's just a bit more space around those really, really painful things. Like, wow. Yeah.
100%. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Wonderfully put.
Yeah. Mic drop. Oh my gosh. Okay, my love. I've got any questions I haven't asked her, by the way.
So, yes, really so have I. I think I think it would be fabulous to have you back again, and we can talk about this from a different angle, and go through all of the questions that we have. Honestly, I could talk to you for hours. 100%. I think now is as good a time as any to bring this episode to a close. I hope you've all really, learned so much from this. I think Ali has put things in such a beautifully simple way. I'm definitely going to go away thinking about this conversation, and we hope that we've brought that to you today. As always, if you have any questions for us or any comments on the episode, please just drop on any of our DMs, our Instagram posts. Just give us a shout. We're really open and friendly, and we don't bite. Check out Ali and Ali's work. Check out Ali and Ali's work, because I think it's really transformative and it can definitely help you reach that version of you that is there, but perhaps is covered by some layers that you want to flick out of the way. Best way to put it. I've been Jay Percy.
And I'm Nicola Roth. Thank you so much, Ali.
Oh my God.
Take care.
Take care. Not at all. All right, guys. So we will see you next week.
See you next week. Thank you, beautiful being of the multiverse, for joining us on the Afro Animist podcast.
If you want to get stuck into the conversation or have a question about anything we speak about here, join our mailing list and find us on our socials.
On TikTok and Instagram, find us at the Afro Animist podcast.
On Twitter, you can find us at Afro Animist. If you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Music, you can also find this talk on YouTube. Just search for us and we will pop up as if by magic.
If you're loving what we're talking about here, share, like and subscribe. And remember to leave us a thumbs up or 5-star rating on your favourite platform.